All right, welcome back. Joining us now is a treat for you people because we have a Democrat, we have a Republican. We have somebody from the Southeast, we have somebody from the Northwest. They probably don't agree on a ton of things when it comes to how they vote or what their ideologies may be. But when it comes to assuring Americans of free, fair elections, they are in accord. They are Brad Raffensperger. He is the Secretary of State for Georgia. He is the 29th Secretary of State, overwhelmingly reelected to another term in 2022. With him is Steve Hobbs. He is the newish Secretary of State for the great state of Washington and is our very welcome guest. Mr. Secretaries, let me start with you, Brad. Secretary Raffensperger, I'm sorry. We heard fine. Donald Trump the other day talk about bloodshed or that there would be a calamity if he was not reelected, and it's been interpreted this way and that way. But I think it touched a fear for a lot of Americans about this upcoming election, that after what we saw in 2020, that we could be marked with violence again, we could be marked with these sorts of problems. You are running elections in one of the most crucial swing states. How do you think about that?
Well, first off, our systems are battle tested. We came through 2022 for our gubernatorial, and we had record turnout. We fully expect strong turnout here. But we've been also doing all sorts of testing, like we're doing the RSV, obviously logic and accuracy testing. But during the election, the presidential primary this past week, we did parallel monitoring just to make sure we do sample selections of the equipment, that it's not been tampered with. We also have very clean voter rolls. We're making sure that only American citizens are voting in our elections. And then we also have photo ID for all forms of voting. We think shores up people's questions. It really elevates confidence in the process. So everything we've done has really to balance that, that tension that you have between accessibility and security.
But how quickly will you be able to count on election night? How long are we going to be waiting to get results from Georgia in November?
I'll be right back.
Well, we had a record last Tuesday. One county posted at 7:02 their first results from the early voting, and so that was tremendous. And so we gave a shout out to Rome, Georgia, Floyd County for doing that. So we really have put into place several improvements in state law so that we can get those results posted even quicker. In fact, I was meeting with the chairman that are working some bills through the General Assembly right now to be able to post some of those results, like the early votes, get those up by 7:30, 8 at the latest, and then obviously absentees that were received earlier will be pre-scanned so we can post those quickly. Both of that shores up confidence. There's less time for people to start building these grand, wild conspiracies that they have. So we'll have fair, honest, and accurate elections again in Georgia.
Secretary Hobbs, unless you know something I don't think Washington will probably be much of a presidential battleground. But there will be there will be contested House races, at least one that we know of that will be a battleground district, and people will be watching Washington closely, and there will be all of that stuff. Washington is an all-mail ballot state, right? That votes by mail. How long are we going to have to wait for Washington results?
Well, it does take a few days, but you're going to see just by the trends in the first opening numbers that come out at 8 p.m. on Tuesday here in our state, you'll have a pretty good indicator of what goes on. But then after that day, then you'll have ballots coming in, because obviously, like you said, we're a mail-in ballot state, so people will mail their ballot in just before 8 p.m. or drop it in one of our drop boxes, and we'll receive that a couple days later. It's a convenient system for Washingtonians, especially those who serve overseas. When I was deployed to Iraq and Kosovo, I did the same thing. I was able to mail my ballot in.
You're such a good citizen. You were even voting when you were a young dude. That is truly admirable. I never managed to get my ballots in the mail, I don't think, when I was that age. But Secretary Hobbs, I want to ask you, you have started an initiative around disinformation around elections. and you've gotten some blowback. Republicans in your state have said that this is censorship and that you're targeting political speech. Tell me about this program and why you think this is okay.
Sure, it's called Logically, which we use to scan social media. So, you know, we're taking public posts that go on Facebook or X, and we're looking at trends. So let's say, for example, the trend is people are hacking into elections. Well, we know that's not true because the tabulation machines are not connected to the internet. So based upon that information, those big trends, then we'll immediately be able to put our information out through social media and through the news media, let people know, hey, you can't hack into the tabulation machines because they're not connected to the internet. We just got to do a better job of telling people about the life cycle of the ballot. Secretaries of state across the United States, including my good colleague there in Georgia, you know, we've done great telling people when to vote, but we now got to tell people what the ballot process is, what the election process is, because we can't take that for granted anymore.
Secretary Raffensperger, one of the things that's going on in Washington State is there's an effort to increase penalties for harassing election workers. For me, one of the things that I find heartbreaking about the conversation around elections in this country is how many volunteers, how many people, how many ordinary people devote their time, their effort, their energy to having free, fair elections. And then very often now, not very often, sometimes those people are subject to harassment, to degradation, and to fear, to concern. What do you do in Georgia to stick up for election workers?
Well, we've been very strong that we understand the good work that all the election workers do, all the poll workers that volunteer to do that. I encourage the General Assembly to look at what Oklahoma had passed. That's actually a solid legislation that was signed into law by a very conservative Republican governor. And so I thought we had modeled it after that would be a good policy. But we're already only have 5 days left in this session, so we're just looking at making sure we pass some of the other things that are important. One of those things is actually stopping foreign interference, and also making sure that we don't have foreign money going into state elections. There's a loophole in state laws. Doesn't have the same prohibitions as federal law does. So we're trying to get that across the center. But we are continuing to make sure that it's going to be accessible to vote. We're back now. If people also should get a peace of mind if they're worried about the absentee ballot process. About 6% of all Georgians are going to vote absentee. 65% are actually going to vote early on one of those 17 days of early voting we have. The other 30% vote on election day. No matter how it is, it's all supported with photo ID. But we also want to encourage everyone to be a good citizen and just really recognize the good work that our poll workers do. We will have security there, and we're having some tabletops throughout the state, regional tabletops, working with law enforcement and other agencies to make sure that we keep our voting locations safe and secure.
So this year, America, keep a thought for our guests today, Secretaries Hobbs and Raffensperger, and all the folks that are working here, there in those little temples of democracy to see that you can vote, so that you can vote accurate, so that your vote will be recorded, and that it will be secure, and that it will get where it's supposed to. Gentlemen, I really thank you for being here together to show a little bipartisan unity on this very important question. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.